All right, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm coming at you with a different kind of video today. Something I've never really done here on the channel. Out of all the series that you've seen before, whether it's Let's Plays, game show series, whatever, none of them have been a podcast series. Well, that's what we're going to be doing today. First of hopefully many episodes of this, the Super Power Podcast is what we're calling this because, well, it's basically more power than a Nintendo Switch, if you know what I mean. Anyways, but I'm not by myself, though, because I've got a great co-host with me here in the form of Nick the Enlightened.
Hey everybody, Nick the Enlightened here, and I am definitely very excited to be a part of Mark's new podcast here. This should definitely be a lot of fun for sure.
You know, it's definitely going to be a lot of fun. So, this has been basically, like, in the planning stages for a little bit, but because Nick kind of moved just recently, we figured that we should probably wait until he was settled into his new place before starting this, and here we are on August 4th, 2025, recording the first episode. So, sit back, grab a snack, and get comfy. So, let's start things off with the recent Mario Kart World update that they had, which fixed a lot of the issues from the update before this. So, what do you think about that?
Well, I definitely am definitely glad they came up with an update for sure. I know that the previous update had kind of turned some people off of the game, so it is nice to see the Nintendo kind of address that issue a little bit, and that it's going to hopefully invite more people back to the game. I've played a little bit of the game since the new update came out, and I gotta say, it is at least pretty nice that 3-lap tracks are a little bit more common now for sure. That is definitely very cool to see, and so I definitely do hope that it will bring more people to the game in the long run for sure.
Oh, yeah. And plus, another thing that I think is definitely helping, because when I was playing this a couple of nights ago, like, seeing how the online was going since that update was applied, I think this would have been, when was this? Yeah, this would have been last Wednesday night. So this would have been right before a certain something that we're going to discuss later on here in the episode. But from what I saw, the lobbies, well, they weren't quite at max capacity, but they were still pretty full. Like maybe 20 players or something, at least 20 players. So in my opinion, that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is nice to see that the online lobbies are starting to fill up a lot more again because I know that prior to the update, there were some people making videos about like how they noticed that they like got online and like there weren't a lot of people online during the game, and it is definitely really nice to see that the game is starting to get a little more active again because, in my opinion, Mario Kart World definitely is a lot of fun. It's far from a perfect game by any means, but I really do think it's got a lot of nice things going for it for sure.
Now, of course, we have to keep in mind, though, that even with these updates, this is still probably not the 100% finished product, even though this game just came out 2 months ago. Because there is the possibility of DLC down the line. Like, new costs, like it could end up being minor things like some new costumes for some of the characters, or just some new characters in general, or even possibly new tracks. And of course, I bring this up because the Switch 1 version of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that was basically a port of Mario Kart 8 from the Wii U. And for a while, since that was released, basically the product that was in that was what we got for a while. Until they decided to add a whole bunch of new tracks a few years ago, making it even more complete than it was previously. So I'm thinking they'll probably do something like that down the line for Mario Kart World.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I have a feeling that especially with the games of $80 price tag, we probably are going to see slow drips of content probably here and there. We're probably going to see a lot of DLC, probably some new courses here and there, maybe even some new characters. I think they're going to keep adding content to Mario Kart World probably at least until the end, close to the end of the Switch 2's lifespan for sure. I can definitely see it being like a long-lasting game because Nintendo really did tout this game as like as like a whole new Mario Kart experience, and it is of course the first Mario Kart game in new Mario Kart game I should say in more than a decade because technically obviously there was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch, but that was more so just a port of like the original Wii U game that kind of added some content and fixed some stuff. So it's the first real brand new true Mario Kart game on console for a very long time, and so I can definitely imagine Nintendo's going to want to probably, for lack of a better term, probably milk this game and get as much out of it as they can for the rest of the Switch 2's lifespan for sure.
Yeah. Now, of course, as of right now, this game is also currently available as part of a bundle pack, although that's likely going to be going away pretty soon to make room for a new bundle featuring Pokemon Legends ZA. But I could see them possibly bringing this bundle back at a later time for, like, say, a holiday season or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see it kind of being a similar to the Wii Sports or even like the Mario Kart Wii bundle back in the day, where every now and again they could bring back the Mario Kart a bundle of Mario Kart World in it, or of course they might occasionally have packs like I said with the Legends ZA bundle coming out, or like there might be like a maybe even like a Smash one later down the road, if there's like a new Smash game for Switch 2. I could definitely see tons of possibilities for that for sure. But either way, for people who are kind of bummed about the Mario Kart World combo pack going away, I'm sure it probably won't be the last of it forever.
Yeah, like I said, they'll probably bring it back at some point down the road. Although, knowing Nintendo, they'll probably reuse that same bundle for the holidays for the entirety of the Switch 2 generation, just like they did with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch 1. Like, come on.
I know that was kind of ridiculous, but knowing Nintendo, like you said, it wouldn't surprise me since they are very much like that. And during the Switch One generation, they kind of showed that they aren't really as willing to mix things up these days as they were back in the day, for better or for worse.
Yeah. All right. So that's that. And by the way, if you still have not played Mario Kart World yet, go out and play it. It's a fantastic game. And what else is a fantastic game is part of what we're talking about next, where we basically go over the elephant in the room, or the bonanza in the room, as it were in this case. Yeah. So, DK Bonanza. I mean, you've already had a chance to play some of that, and it's a fantastic game, is it not?
Oh, it really is. I genuinely do think it's probably easily already a game of the year contender from what I have played out of it. It really is, it really is just so much fun. I really just, I love playing it. I think it's easily like the best, DK has been represented in a very long time. And in all honesty, I really do think it's a great smash hit to get out there and get people interested in the Switch 2 for sure.
Yeah. Like, I've basically described this game, which, by the way, I did beat a couple of days ago as of the time we're recording this, by the way. And basically, the way I've been saying it to you and a few of our other friends, it's basically a drugged up version of Mario.
Yeah, that is basically a good way of describing it. I mean, in a lot of ways, I've kind of been joking for a long time now that this game basically is, Donkey Kong Odyssey in a lot of ways because of the various similar elements to Mario Odyssey. But truth be told, I really have been having a lot more fun with this game than I had even with Mario Odyssey back in the day.
Yeah, and it's a much bigger game than Mario Odyssey. That much is for certain.
Yep. And I definitely think, I won't say anything really about the story because I know not everyone's played the game, but I definitely will say that the story is much more in-depth and much more satisfying, too. Like, I think they definitely made it it's a lot more interesting of a story to play through and explore than Mario Odyssey is for sure.
Yeah. And plus, what also makes this game so good is that it's the very first 3D Donkey Kong game since the Nintendo 64 era, all the way back in, at the end of the 90s. So that's how long it's been.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy that it took almost 30 years to get a whole new 3D Donkey Kong game, but in all honesty, I feel like of how good this game is, the wait definitely was kind of worth it for sure. And I definitely am glad that Switch 2 owners can experience truly what I consider to be a masterpiece of a game.
Yeah. Now, in my personal opinion, and you probably will agree with me on this, I find Bonanza to be much easier than Donkey Kong 64.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. I really have not been struggling at all with DK at Bonanza, whereas with TK64, I don't think I've ever beaten that game. So I can definitely say that I've gotten a much bigger handle on DK Bonanza compared to DK64 for sure.
Oh, yeah. Now, hopefully we don't have to wait another quarter century for another 3D Donkey Kong after this.
Well, now that you said that, it's probably going to happen, isn't it? Well, but seriously, I do agree. Hopefully, we won't have to wait such a long time for another 3D Donkey Kong game. But who knows? But the game does seem to be popular, and hopefully, it is selling really well. So, hopefully, with that in mind, Nintendo will look at its success and be like, dang, we need to make more 3D Donkey Kong games in the future.
Yeah. Now, this is just a bold prediction, but I'm thinking that this game could sell just as much as Odyssey did, if not a little bit more than what Odyssey sold.
Honestly, I could very well see that, especially because like you said, the hype of it being like a brand new 3D Donkey Kong game for the first time in a long time, plus of all the rave it's been getting, rightfully so, I might add. I could definitely see this game, going on to kind of be like the game to define the Switch 2 generation. Obviously we got a long time to go, so I probably shouldn't be making a declaration like that just yet. But it truly is a fantastic game overall, for sure.
Yeah. Now, is it going to get the sales numbers that something like a Zelda or Pokemon would normally get? Probably not. But if it can get, like, say, between 5 million and 10 million copies sold, then I think that would be considered a success for a game like that.
For sure, and I imagine that would definitely be around the ballpark of what Nintendo was probably anticipating with this game as well.
Yep. Alright.
And
No, go on.
I was gonna say, just as one last thing, I will say in regards to DK Bonanza is that from what I have played of it, unlike Mario Kart World, which even for as much as I love that game, I still don't really think it's worth the $80 price tag. DK Bonanza, I can definitely say I truly do think it honestly is worth the $70 price tag for sure. It really does feel like a $70 game, and unlike Mario Kart World, I honestly do think DK Bonanza is priced somewhat fairly for sure.
Yeah, like, it's one of those games where, like, if you kind of miss it that much, you can always go back and replay it. And that's like mainly the difference between single player games like that and Mario Kart. Because, like, Mario Kart, you can basically just pick up and play anytime you want. Whereas Donkey Kong, of course, is the more story driven focus. And it's also a perfect game for the summertime, too. Especially, yeah, it's a perfect summertime game, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah. Alright, so now we're going to get to probably the biggest talking point of this entire show. The recent partner direct from last Thursday. And, alright, so of course, this past weekend, what I did to get ready for this part was I combed back through the direct video to gather up as much information as I could. So were a total of 25 games that were shown in that. And remember, they advertised the presentation as being 25 minutes. So on average, that's a game a minute, pretty much. So,
Yep.
So they started off by announcing a brand new Monster Hunter Stories game, which I honestly was not quite expecting.
Yeah, neither was I, but it definitely did look interesting for sure. I don't know if it's a game that I'm going to get personally, but I definitely am happy for like the Monster Hunter fans out there that they get to experience something like that for sure.
Yeah. Now, what actually got me intrigued about that one is, well, it's basically a Monster Hunter version of Pokemon, and and granted it may be just a spin-off series compared to the regular Monster Hunter games, but it's still something I might be curious to check out when it comes out. Although, granted, that's not going to be till some point in 2026, so we're going to have to wait at least a few months for that, but I still think it'll be worth it.
for sure. And if you do get the game, I hope you enjoy it.
All right. Well, the next game on there was I guess the newest title in the Katamari series, I believe it is, Once Upon a Katamari. I mean, I know there are some people out there that enjoy those games, but I'm not really one of them.
Yeah, same here. I definitely did see a lot of rave about that game not too long after the direct and several of the servers I'm in, so I can definitely tell that there are a lot of people that are happy about it. But for me personally, it was just kind of like, I mean, it does look interesting for sure. It does seem like a very well developed and nicely polished game. It's just not the kind of game that's really for me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually kind of surprised that they announced it as being for Switch 1, because from what the gameplay that they showed of it, it looked like it was having a bit of trouble running on the Switch 1.
Yeah, it does kind of seem a little bit, I guess you could say absurd that they're trying to, even today, after the Switch 2 came out, trying to make a lot of games that work well on the clearly aging Switch 1 hardware. But, I mean, I guess we'll see how well it does when it comes out. Of course, I imagine with how many Switch 1 games have gotten Switch 2 backwards compatibility, like upgrades and stuff, and how they run a lot better. I can imagine hopefully the Switch 1 version of that game, hopefully it will... hopefully it will run pretty good on the Switch too if people play it on there.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've got the annual Just Dance edition. I know Vanadium Fan 1999 is a fan of this series, so I know he's going to enjoy this game, but for me, blah!
Yeah, that's pretty much my reaction too. I have never liked the Just Dance games at all. That they've always been very annoying to me, and they're just the kind of games I never really want to play.
Yeah.
But with that said, I am still happy for Daniel. So, even though I don't care about Just Dance at all, I hope he enjoys the game.
Yeah. And even if I were to try play those games, I would not be able to do it on my YouTube channel because of all the music that's in it. And in fact, when that section of the direct came up and I was doing my reactions, I actually had to mute that part to avoid being copyrighted for the music.
Yeah, and that's always kind of a bummer too when it comes to that kind of thing because obviously the copyright thing is very strict on YouTube to begin with, and for many people who do a lot of things like stream their writings to the direct, it kind of does make things like that a bit of a pain in the ass for sure, having to cut some of that out. But yeah, like I said, it's it's one of those things where I really don't care about the game, and even if I did, I wouldn't be covering it on YouTube anyway.
All right. So then the next game after that was I don't know if this is something I would get, but it's a much better game than Just Dance. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Yep, I gotta say, that game definitely did look interesting for sure. I'm far from a Dragon Ball fan. I don't think I've even really ever watched the show too much growing up. So obviously there's that. So obviously it's probably not the kind of game that I'm interested in at all in either. But I can definitely see why a lot of people would be excited for that because I will say it did look really good, and I'm sure Dragon Ball fans are probably eating really good right now.
Yeah. Now, I know Connor already played this. This is our friend Connor Condry I'm talking about, by the way. He already played this last fall when it came out on PS5. I'm not sure if he would want to double dip on this and get it again for the Switch 2. But, again, that's a decision for him to make.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure he's probably going to come to the decision pretty soon himself. But either way, like I said, for people who already did like the game and want to check it out again, and of course haven't had the chance to play it yet, I definitely hope they're excited for sure.
Right. Then the game after this was a remastered version of the original Plants vs. Zombies called Plants vs. Zombies Replanted.
Yep, and I gotta say, other than a certain other game we might talk about later, this might be the only game in there that kind of really did, kind of excite me a little bit. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be like enough to really, get me out to go out and buy it, but as someone who actually did enjoy some Plants vs. Zombies stuff when I was a lot younger, I could definitely see myself being curious about this game, and it is nice that they're actually coming out with one for sure.
And from what I noticed in there was one character in that looked almost kind of similar to Bellsprout from Pokemon. And that made me think, I'm kind of surprised Nintendo slash Game Freak slash Pokemon Company didn't sue EA for that.
Yeah, I'm kind of stunned either. I don't know if they're being a bit more lenient, or if they decided it was like different enough to like warrant not wasting the time of the lawsuit or what. But either way, it definitely is interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even though it looks similar, I guess they made it different enough to the point where Nintendo probably decided that they didn't care enough to go after EA for that. So,
Yeah, and that is definitely nice for sure. At least there won't be another Power World situation in regards to that. But either way, like I said, that might be probably the only other game besides, like I said, a certain one we'll talk about later that I might consider getting that was announced in that direct. Because, like I said, Plants vs Zombies, at least in my opinion, it is a really cool series of games. So we'll see what happens with that release.
yeah. And then then the next one was the annual soccer sim known as FC slash FIFA 26. Now, I do like playing a good bunch of sports games. FIFA is not one of them, however.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. Like I hardly play like any sports games to begin with, and as a result, as you can imagine, I pretty much have nothing really to say about the FIFA game. I mean, like I said, good for obviously the fans of that series, but for me, I just really do not care at all.
I suppose that's fair. And now we're going to come to the one that was after this, and I know you're going to have a lot to say on this.
Oh
The
yeah,
remaster of Pac-Man World 2, aka Pac-Man World 2 Repack.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say this right off the bat. Fuck yes, I am so happy for this game, man. And what is so crazy too is that they literally just announced it just literally a few months after I already did a let's play of the original version of this game on my own channel.
Yeah. Funny how things work like that sometimes.
I know. It almost makes me want to think that someone at Namco was watching my videos and was like, "Damn, we got to remake this game now." Obviously, I know it didn't happen like that, but hey, I'd like to think it. Regardless, though, it looks freaking amazing, and I have so much I want to say about this. But the first thing I will say is, oh my god, dude, the graphics in this remake just look truly gorgeous for sure. They really do look amazing.
Oh, that they do. And I actually already have this pre-ordered, the Switch 2 version of it. But it's a digital copy because I ain't doing a key card for a game that only takes 7 gigabytes of space. And we're actually going to talk about the key cards later on. But first, continuing on with thoughts on Pac-Man World 2 Repack.
Yeah, like I said, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and I really do like the fact that they basically are giving Pac-Man like a super butt bounce in this game as opposed to the original one as well. I don't know how well that will work in practice, but it does look so freaking amazing. And the remasters of stuff like the Ice World and even like a couple of the boss fights really does look so nice as well.
Man, I honestly cannot wait to play this. I mean, it's going to be a great game. The only like minor nitpick I have with this is the release timing that they chose. It comes out literally the exact same day as another racing game starring our favorite hedgehog.
Yeah, that is kind of like one other small little nitpick I have too, is that because of that fact that it's going to mean that I'm going to have to divide my time between those two games when they come out, because obviously, like I said, I'm going to be excited to play both of them. But like I said, I definitely will make sure to check out Pac-Man World 2 Repack because it does look amazing. And one other thing I should mention too that wasn't the original Pac-Man World 2 game is of course the fact that just like in Pac-Man World 3, now they gave Pac-Man a voice in this sequel, and I gotta say it's pretty awesome because it's actually, from what I understand, the same guy that actually did the voice of Pac-Man in the Pac-Man World 3. So it is pretty nice that they actually did that for this remaster.
So you know how a couple of years ago, where it was basically a revival of Mario vs. Sonic, because of the fact that both Mario Wonder and Sonic Superstars came out that same week. Well, now, the week that both of these different games are coming out, it's pretty much Pac-Man versus Sonic.
Yeah, pretty much. And even though I probably have a feeling that Sonic Racing Crossworlds probably is going to crush World 2 Repack in terms of sales, I think both games will still be amazing to play, and I definitely will probably still enjoy Pac-Man World 2 Repack just as much, if not more, for sure. Especially because it really was one of my best childhood games growing up.
Yeah, because I think I saw somewhere one time where Bandai Namco had said, this was when they were remastering the first Pac-Man World game, where they said they would do World Repack versions of World 2 and World 3 if the remaster of the first one sold well enough to warrant them doing that, and I guess they must have gotten the numbers that they wanted for that one, otherwise they wouldn't have announced this.
Yep. So thank goodness the first repack game sold as well as it did as well, because otherwise we might not be treated this good for sure. But either way, it definitely is nice to see. And of course, another thing I should say as well is that, even for as much as I love Pac-Man World 2, I definitely do still hope the remake kind of fixes a couple of the problems the original game had. Namely, of course, with the camera, as well as like maybe the fact that there really was at least like one or two boss fights in the original game that definitely were frustrating because of the way the original game operated. So hopefully with that, they kind of tweak that a little bit in this remake for sure.
Well, we shall see what happens on that front, but I am definitely looking forward to playing it. All right.
Same here.
Probably not so much, though, for the next game that was after this. Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, I'm not much of a Final Fantasy fan, so once again, don't really have much to say. Like I said, just I never really cared for the series, so as a result, probably not going to get that game anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, I have beaten both Final Fantasies 7 and 16, but and although I did enjoy playing through those, I'm not really much of a fan of that series either, so I'm probably going to skip this one. So,
yep.
So we're going to move on now to, I know Dominic got particularly excited about this one. The Switch 2 port for Persona 3 Reload.
Yep, I imagine that both him and, another one of my friends from the server, Hint Crazy Mario, are probably really happy about that one because, they are definitely big Persona fans. And, even though, of course, I personally don't really play the games that much, I definitely do really hope they get their hands on and enjoy it for sure, too. And, Dominic, if you're watching this, I will definitely say that if you stream this game or do something like that down the line, I'll be happy to watch it for sure.
Yeah. Now, the only thing though is that the only problem with this game though is that it already came out on other systems last year. Like I believe this was an early 2024 release on the PS5, and I have that version already. So I personally don't feel the need to buy this game a second time for a different platform.
Yeah, me either. Not that I had the game to begin with, but like I said, even if I did, I probably wouldn't feel the need to rebuy it regardless.
Yeah. All right. Now, the next one after this was Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, and some of you right now are probably thinking, why was Zelda at the Partner Showcase? That's a Nintendo franchise, and you'd be correct. However, the Zelda Warriors games are done by Koei Tecmo. So because of that, this kind of game is eligible to appear in partner directs.
Yep, and I gotta say, from what we saw, it did look pretty neat. I mean, like I said, I've kind of been a bit of a broken record for this podcast, but like I said, never been the biggest Zelda fan personally. But like I said, it's definitely a game where, I think does look very nice. And, who knows, maybe if it goes on sale later on, or if I hear some good things about it, maybe it could be a game I could consider checking out down the line.
If only they would give a release date, though.
For sure. We'll have to see what happens with that, and hopefully it's actually a good release date. But either way, like I said, it did look pretty good, I will admit.
Yeah. So now the next game then up here on the list is one that's actually the closest right now to being released, if I'm not mistaken, which is Madden 26, which, if you actually pre-ordered the early access digital versions on either Switch 2 or PS5, you actually get to start playing it this week. And of course, with me being a football fan, I am definitely very excited for this game. And I do have it pre-ordered, but it's the physical standard version for PS5. So unfortunately, that means I have to wait an extra week to be able to play it. But you know what? It's fine. Besides, like, all the early access version does is, like, well, obviously it lets you play like the franchise mode a bit early, but also grants like card packs for the online Ultimate Team mode, and that's a mode that is kind of useless to me. So for me, like, I'm just fine with the standard version.
Yep. Like I said, I have no interest in Madden games, so definitely not going to get this game. Not definitely not going to get this game at all. But I'm definitely proud for you, though. And like I said, I hope that when you end up playing this game, you end up liking it a lot, because I'm definitely sure that it's probably going to give you a lot of good mileage for sure.
Yeah, and I do have this pre-ordered, but I actually pre-ordered it yesterday. But the PS5 version. Now, don't get me wrong. The footage they showed for the Switch 2 version, to me, didn't look too bad. But I just think it'll run and look better on the PlayStation 5, which is why I chose to get that version.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. The PS5 definitely is a nice, chunky piece of hardware that is nice and powerful. So I'm sure it probably will be the definitive version of the game. But like I said, either way, like I said, when it comes out, I definitely hope you enjoy it a lot.
Yeah. There is one more sports game on this list, but that's not going to come up till a little bit later. Next is a bit of a cozy campfire game called Chillin' by the Fire. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really have anything to say about this one.
Yep. Neither do I. I mean, it exists, I guess. That's pretty much all I can say about it.
Yep. So we'll just move swiftly along to Apex Legends, which, of course, is a first-person shooter. Like, not that Apex Legends is a bad game. I mean, I know there's a die-hard fan base for that, which is fine. But the market's kind of oversaturated with these kind of games already.
Yeah, for sure. And I will admit I did play Apex Legends in the past, and, it was a decently fun game. So, I can definitely understand why the appeal of this. But for me, it's like, I've already played this game a lot in the past. And in all honesty, even though I like the game, it's not like I loved it enough to be like super obsessed with the fact that it's coming to, Switch 2 now. So for me, that part of the announcement was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But, like I said, for those who are excited about it, that's awesome.
Yep, but I'm not going to be picking this up myself, by the way.
Yeah, but neither will I.
Yeah. Then we've got that Stuart Little type game that I think has a bit of farming. It's called Hella. And when I saw this, I'm like, can we just have one direct without some sort of farming game, please?
Exactly. But it seems like these directs just can't be made without those damn farming simulators. And so here's this direct version of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just move on from that to something that's, I guess, better than Hella, but it's still not a good game either. Star Wars Outlaws.
Yep. That game, honestly, from what I saw, the footage really did not impress me at all. There was that. I do like Star Wars, but honestly, that game just kind of looked generic and played out. So not going to be checking that out at all.
Yeah, I did look at it on PS5. I didn't really like it that much, and I ended up uninstalling it. So.
Yep. It's just not a very good game to begin with, and so the fact that it's coming to Switch 2 pretty much really does nothing for me.
Yeah. It also didn't help that when I played it on PS5, the game also crashed on me a couple of times, so that didn't help either.
No, that's definitely a good way to kind of turn you off of the game as well when it keeps pulling crap like that.
Yeah. Alright, so next we've got Chronos the New Dawn, which actually did look pretty good from what I saw of it, but from the gameplay showed of it, but not really something that interests me.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely like you said, like one of those games where, if I'm looking at it from like an objective standpoint, it does look really nice. I think it probably will be a great game for people who are into that kind of genre of games for sure. But for me, like I said, just don't really have much interest. But like I said, it definitely did look good though for sure.
Yeah. Then we've got a bundle featuring both Yakuza Kiwami, uh, whatever the one that it was that came out on the Switch 1 last year. That's being ported to the Switch 2, along with the release of another Yakuza Kiwami title. So they're putting it as a bundle. And the only reason I might have a bit of an interest in this is because of Brandon Hinkle, because he actually got me into the Yakuza series fairly recently.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, if that's the case, then if you do check it out, I hope you like it. For me, like I said, it's kind of more of like a 50-50 thing. Maybe it could be a game that I might consider checking out down the line, but as of now, like I said, there's definitely a lot of other games I might try to play right now for sure.
Yeah. Then after this was Goodnight Universe. Yeah, I think I will just pass on that. Thank you.
Yep, pretty much another game that don't really have much to say about for sure. Just didn't really look interesting.
Yeah. Then we had NBA Bounce, which kind of looked like it was pretty much, I guess, outright games version of NBA Jam. I kind of like what they were trying to go for with that, but that one just doesn't really do it for me. I mean, no disrespect to that, but I think I'd prefer a classic NBA Jam over whatever attempt they were trying to make and replicate that.
Yeah, that was like one of the games I saw during the direct that honestly genuinely kind of did baffle me because it's like, what the heck are they doing here? And honestly, it just didn't look good to me at all. I think that game is a definite pass for me.
Yeah. Well, the good news though, Nick, there's no sports games left on this list.
Yep, we're through with all the sports games that were announced during this direct.
Yeah. And like I said, just real quick, even though like I have played basketball video games in the past, I would probably prefer playing NBA 2K over that NBA Bounce title, just for the record.
Yeah, I would probably have to agree with you. Like I said, not much into sports games in general, but if I were to play an NBA game, it definitely would be like more of like the classic style games.
Yeah. Then we have Hello Kitty Island Adventure, Wheat Flower Wonderland. Just why?
Yeah, and I hate Hello Kitty, so as you can imagine, seeing that game pop up really didn't do anything for me. I was kind of like, geez, wow, this exists, I guess.
Yeah. Now, Island Adventure technically already came out earlier this year, so I'm guessing this is probably a DLC add-on or something. I have no clue, but I have no intention of trying to find out. So, next. After that was Romancing Saga 2. Yeah, again, no thank you.
You have nothing to say about that one.
Yeah. Then, after that was Shinobi Art of Vengeance, which actually looks pretty decent. And considering that how a lot of Sega stuff these days is usually just like Sonic now, this is actually a nice way to bring Shinobi back. I believe it's out now, or it might be coming out pretty soon. I have no idea, but I might have to check it out, but chances are I'm probably just gonna skip this one.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe it might be like another one of those games that I might check out like later on down the line when it goes on a sale or something. But I will agree with you. It did look pretty good, and it is nice to see that Sega is still willing to make other games other than Sonic.
Yep. Then we had Borderlands 4. No thanks.
Yep, I do not care for the Borderlands games. I really only think I ever played Borderlands 3 one time, and honestly, I didn't like it at all. So don't care for that game.
Yep. Then the next one was The Adventures of Elliot the Millennium Tales, and that one basically showed that you don't really need like all sorts of fancy 3D visuals or whatever to make a good game, because they employed the HD 2D engine that they are using for the Dragon Quest remakes, or for the remakes of the first couple of Dragon Quest games, and it's honestly not that bad.
Yeah, it does look pretty intriguing for sure. It's probably not a game that I'm going to get personally, but For sure, for people who are into that type of game, I think it could definitely be a nice one to play for sure.
Yep. And then we had the game that closed it out, which was Octopath Traveler Zero. Kind of expected something better than that for a closer, but oh well, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, kind of a disappointing finish overall to the direct, but like I said, it's not much you can really do about it. And as for the game itself, don't really have much to say about it. Not really into Octopath very much.
Yeah. All right, so that was all 25 games that were showcased. Well, so now we get to the next section of this, which is what Xbox announced a couple of months ago, the ROG Xbox Ally. Now, considering how you have an Xbox, you'd probably be able to give more insight on your thoughts on this.
Well, like I said, I definitely do think it is pretty interesting for sure. You know, it definitely is pretty clear that after how successful the Switch was, that the other companies want to get in on the whole, portable console business now. Now that people have kind of shown that portable consoles are not the style. So I gotta say, it is kind of intriguing. I don't know if I'm going to get one or not just yet, but like I said, I am still kind of excited nonetheless. I do think it'd be good for the industry at least for sure, and we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah, and the way they were touting this up, that made it seem like it was a completely brand new product, as it never been done before. Well, guess what? I actually had a look around Best Buy recently at something like that, and spoiler alert, something like that actually does already exist as a Windows PC handheld, which means all they're really doing with that is just slapping the Xbox branding on it. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, why?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just unfortunately this kind of the standard Microsoft practice now, where they basically, kind of buy something and then they basically try to claim it's like their own thing now or whatever. Obviously, they're far from the most ethical company out there, but as for the product itself, who knows? I think could still be a lot of fun for sure. Definitely for sure if some of my Xbox friends pick it up, I'm sure I could definitely get some good mileage out of the device for sure.
Yeah. Now, there's no price information on this available as of right now. All we know for a fact is that it's supposed to come out during the holiday season, so they have to announce some pricing pretty soon. And I imagine it would be more expensive than what the Switch 2 currently costs.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see it probably costing like $550 or like a bare minimum.
Yeah. So definitely more expensive than the Switch 2, but that's a product that I don't really have any interest in getting anyway. Oh, and speaking of prices, so I was mentioning that PC ROG Ally that I had seen in Best Buy and not too long ago, and the price for that, and this is in Canadian dollars by the way, since I do live in Canada as you know, the price tag they had on there in Canadian dollars I think was like around 1,200.
Yeesh, yeah, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, considering that I spent almost $800 Canadian money on the Switch 2, yeah, that's a cost that I don't think I can stomach. Thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's definitely understandable. Especially like even for me, like after making the big purchase like that, you definitely want to let your wallet recover a little bit. So I would definitely say when it comes to stuff like that, even if you were interested, it probably would be best to hold off regardless.
Yeah, and I don't even really see the need to pick that up anyway because, like, a lot of the things uh, that PC handheld would be able to do, I could literally do on my own computer anyway.
Exactly. I know there's definitely a lot of rave about, a lot of PC like handhelds like this like the Steam Deck and stuff, and I definitely do think they are pretty cool and stuff. But in all honesty, for me as someone who actually does have a nice and powerful gaming PC and can pretty much do everything those things can do and a lot more. For me, it's just like there's not really much of reason for me personally to care.
Yeah, but for anyone that is going to get the Xbox Ally later this year, well, hopefully you've got big enough wallets for that.
For
Uh,
sure. And furthermore, I hope you do enjoy it for sure.
yeah. All right, and then so the next topic after this is. Oh no, never mind. We're not at that point yet. So there is a demo for Drag X Drive this week. That game itself comes out next week. That's the wheelchair basketball thing that they announced in the direct 4 months ago. And there is a demo for that coming out this weekend, like they said, which is nice. I mean, it's not too often that Nintendo allows people to get downloads of demos for their games on the eShops. It's nice that they're making this one available. But why are they making you pre-order it? That makes no sense.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a pretty scummy move on their part. I mean, like I said, it's not something I've been paying much attention to anyway because I have no interest in Drag X Drive. But seriously, Nintendo, you've already been getting a lot of bad PR this year as it is, thanks to what happened on the April 2nd direct, or specifically what happened immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
This is only going to do nothing more. Other than like further feel those people that hate on you more.
Yeah, like they've already made a lot of silly mistakes with the Switch 2 generation just a couple months into it. And this is another example of that. I mean, now granted, the demo doesn't have to be paid for anyway, which is a good thing, but having to pre-order it should never be a thing.
Exactly. It's just not a good look for Nintendo, not at all.
Yeah, in fact, let me give you an example of a game that came out last year on the Switch 1, where for Princess Peach Showtime, I think about a month or so before that game came out, they allowed you to download a demo for that, but they didn't make you pre-order it. Like, once they announced the demo for it, it was just there on the eShop, you could download it. None of that pre-order crap. So why they decided that this is a thing for Drag X Drive, like, just... I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna get that game myself anyway, but having to pre-order a demo, yeah, no, that's not.
Exactly. And it's just kind of I don't know. Maybe it's because you're like super proud of this game or something for whatever reason. But even if that's the case, this is still just a terrible look for them all around.
To be fair, though, it's a heck of a lot better than that Everybody 1-2 Switch garbage they came out with last year.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, because I know when Everybody 1-2 Switch came out last year, Heiko and I were both like, yeah, no, we're staying as far away from this game as we possibly can.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Especially because I absolutely hated the original 1-2 Switch. I would still say that's probably the worst Switch game out there.
yeah, I mean, I never played the original 1-2 Switch, but I think from what I heard, that was a pretty bad game itself. Why they felt the need to make a sequel for that? Ugh, just... That's kind of an unnecessary sequel, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's it was a game that people really did not like to begin much to begin with, and the fact that they're doing another one, it's like just why?
Yeah, like, ugh, I don't get that. I honestly don't get that.
Maybe, unless you're looking purely at sales numbers, but even then, that was only because the only reason the original one to Switch kind of sold decently well is just because of the fact that for at least like the first couple weeks or so, it was basically other than Breath of the Wild, basically the only game you could play on there.
Yeah. Although, what I think they should have done last year, instead of a sequel for everybody... Here's what I think would have made a better sequel that they could have done over Everybody 1-2 Switch. Now, granted, this may have originally been planned for Switch 1, and then they decided to move it to Switch 2. Super Mario Maker 3, anybody?
Yep. I mean, who knows? I mean, this year technically, well, I shouldn't even say technically, it is a 40th year anniversary for Mario, so who knows? Something like that is always a possibility to get announced later on this year or next year, of course. But either way, it definitely would have made for a greater celebration for sure.
Yeah. Anyway. But, yeah. I mean, anyone that is going to get Dragon X Drive, hopefully they have fun with it, but don't do the silly thing of pre-ordering the demo. Just wait for the game to come out next week. You don't have to wait that long regardless.
Exactly. But I guess for the few that are gonna get that game, well, hopefully it turns out good.
Yeah, but there is also another one coming out near the at the end of this month, or a couple of days away from the end of the month, that I'm definitely much more interested in playing, which is the upgrade pack for Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Oh yes, as someone who loved the original Kirby and the Forgotten Land so much, and once again, the shill here also did a let's play of that game. Surprisingly, 2 years ago now. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that upgrade pack as well. I definitely do think the new content looks amazing, and I cannot wait to see the game get a much needed visual and frame rate overhaul.
Yeah. All right, and so now the next topic is probably the most controversial thing that everyone seems to be talking about. Nintendo's insistence on the usage of game key cards for the Switch 2, well, specifically for third-party games.
Yep. This has pretty much been an ongoing discussion about the Switch 2 basically ever since the full reveal of it on April 2nd. And I gotta say, even though I definitely do think some of the criticisms, are a bit misinformed, I still think the game key cards are absolutely just stupid overall. And honestly, the fact that Nintendo is pushing so hard for them, it's just like, why? I get that you want to make more money, but this is just the wrong way to go about it. And I feel like this is kind of like a sneaky way for them to kind of like usher in like eventually like an all digital future.
Yeah, and there's some games that don't even need it. Now, first off, like some of the big games like Madden, like the upcoming Madden, like even like the new NBA 2K that's gonna be coming out soon. Those are big games, so it would make sense for them to have game key cards because those are like over 64 gigabytes, and that's the current capacity of cartridge that the Switch 2 uses. Meaning, for those kind of games, you have to go the key card route, so that makes sense. But then there's significantly smaller games that in my opinion, don't even need it. Pac-Man World 2 Repack and Puyo Puyo Tetris Switch 2 Edition, anybody?
Yeah, exactly. And what sucks is that, it seems like almost all the third-party developers, maybe save for like a couple of them, are basically abusing this fact and pretty much taking advantage of the game key cards. And as a result, I kind of do worry that, in a long time from now, there's basically going to be some people out there that are going to be sitting on like a bunch of useless cartridges that are basically just wasteful plastic, all because Nintendo decided to go this route. And it's like, why? There's just no reason for this.
Yeah, because I know there's one specific third-party game that's coming out next month, that being the new Sonic Racing game that originally was going to be a key card game for the Switch 2 physical release. But Sega got a lot of backlash for it, so they're like, okay, fine, we'll make it a real physical.
Yep. And like I said, they really should have and like I said, they really should have, other third-party developers should definitely be taking note of that, but it kind of does seem like, unfortunately, they aren't. And, I definitely do hope that in the future, Nintendo kind of decides to rectify this and at least give, people more options for sure. That way, it's more than just their games that are still getting physical cartridges, because whether people like it or not, whether certain third-party developers like it or not, there's always going to be an attachment to physical cartridges for a variety of reasons. And so, them basically kind of trying to shut out that demographic in the long term is just, it's just scummy in my opinion.
Yeah. Now, out of the third-party games for the Switch 2 that I currently have, the only one that is not a key card is Cyberpunk 2077. And mind you, that's a pretty big game itself.
Yeah, exactly.
But still, you gotta give mad respect to CD Projekt Red for actually recognizing that people still like physical games. So,
Exactly.
I mean, the fact that you're able to fit the entirety of that base game as well as the DLC pack onto a cartridge without having to resort to key card, like I said, that is mad respect for the gamer. Now, if only these other companies would take notes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But either way, like I said, I don't think game key cards, are good for the industry at all. And I have seen some people try to argue that, that it's basically just the same as like those download codes they had for Switch One games. And even though that technically is true, it still just feels like a huge waste of money and time, especially because even during the Switch One generation, you still had a lot of games that that were still coming out on physical cartridges.
Yeah. But yeah, like the ones that are just like code in the box, those are even worse because then there's not even a point in buying it physically. You may as well just grab it on the eShop.
Exactly. At that point, the case is just basically worthless. It's just basically like literally a chunk of plastic.
Yeah, and at least with key cards, you can resell those. You can't do that with code in the box.
Exactly. It's like I think in general, Nintendo went about this the wrong way. They should have definitely given developers more leeway over this sort of thing, and basically, still basically giving them incentives to basically put games on physical cartridges because I heard that was part of the reason too, is because of the fact that they were only offering them like limited options.
Yeah, well, hopefully more options will open up in the future.
I hope
Now,
so too.
and now we come to the very last topic of this, which is that whole drama that happened recently surrounding YouTuber beat 'em ups. So, for those who are uneducated, beat 'em ups is a popular YouTuber who originally was from Australia. And there was this whole drama that started, I think, near the end of June, where he said there would be a Nintendo Direct in July, which did happen. Granted, it was at the very end of July, but that still counted. So he was correct on that. But there were certain games that he said would be in the Direct, i.e., Metaphor Fantasio, a teaser for Animal Crossing, as well as Pokemon Coliseum Shadow Drop for GameCube NSO. That gave people the implication that it was going to be a general Direct. And like I said, while he was right about there being a Nintendo Direct in July, he was wrong about the format because, as we saw, it was a partner showcase and not a general. So he was part right and part wrong. And then apparently, and then a couple days after this, he had the audacity to say that he made all that up as a quote-unquote social experiment. Dude, you flat out lied to your audience. Like, what do you possibly expect to gain from that?
Exactly. And in all honesty, if Beat 'em Ups actually thought he was gonna, gain like a lot of, popularity and fame by doing that and respect for it, then he really is a moron. Like just basically like lying like that and basically just, pretty much just being a complete and total asshole for no reason. Like, I'm sorry, dude. At that point, you basically fucking cooked yourself.
Yeah. Like, the fact that he even mentioned an Animal Crossing teaser got that community pretty excited. And you guys know that the Animal Crossing community is pretty large. So he got those people excited, and now the Direct comes. There's no Animal Crossing. All those people are going to be like, what the fuck, man?
Exactly. And even like if it was a thing where like if he just wasn't entirely sure, but but just kind of wanted to throw some things out there, he could have just done that instead of just like freaking outright lying. That's something that really gets me about a lot of these YouTubers is that when they admit that they deliberately lie, but they expect no pushback on it. Like, dude, you're on the fucking internet, and a lot of people come to you as like a source of trust and information. Therefore, if you violate that trust, people are going to be naturally angry, and that's very very understandable.
The sad part about all this is that popular YouTubers like that only care about clicks. They care more about clicks than their audience, which is unfortunate.
Yep. Well, and not only that, but they also kind of unfairly damage the reputation of other and Nintendo news channels as well. Because when one person does a sin like that, everybody starts to think that all of them are like that, and then it just gives them like an unfair bad rap, and it's just and it's just really unfortunate too.
Yeah, and the thing is, when he first reported that, all like the major news outlets started picking up on that. Even Nintendo Prime picked up on that. So now what? All of those people look like idiots because beat 'em ups gave wrong information. information that he knew himself was wrong, and he still gave it anyway. Like make that make sense.
Exactly. Like honestly, beat him upset, you know, you know, honestly, I think you're done, dude. In all honesty, if you had any integrity, you should be fucking apologizing for this. But of course, he won't be, because all he cares, because he got all the clicks and and engagement he wanted. So he's probably never gonna fully retract any of this, which really does suck.
And you know what the ironic thing about all this is? This is not the
Yeah.
first time he has done something like this. This also happened apparently a couple years ago. This was around the time Tears of the Kingdom was getting ready to come out, and he quote unquote claimed that he got the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom OLED early. And spoiler alert, that never happened.
Yep. So it's not the first time he's had a problem with lying like this deliberately in the past, and unfortunately, I feel like for some people, when they lie like that once, they can do it repeatedly as long as they feel like invisible to it. And well, I think that's kind of evidently what's happened to beat him ups here. He's got too much of a swollen ego, and I think he genuinely thought he could get away with this to the point where he told a bunch of lies, and it really is sad.
And that's another problem with popular YouTubers like that. They let all that fame get to their heads, and I think that's what's happened in this situation.
Exactly. And really, not to get too far off topic, but that is definitely one of the reasons why even I myself never hope to get too famous with that on YouTube, because even though I definitely would like to say that, that wouldn't happen to me and that I would still remain as, pure as I am now on YouTube, it's hard to say for sure because, there was a lot of people that kind of felt that same way too when they first got very popular, and then they, let all the fame get to their head, and then all basically like settle to their former selves. So it's definitely a thing where, because of that fact, I definitely do not want to hopefully ever get too famous on YouTube for sure.
Well, in any case, I think that's pretty much a wrap on this podcast episode. Again, I don't know how often we're going to do this. I guess it really depends on how our schedules lined up. They happen to line up today since I didn't have to work today, this being on Monday. You're going to see this the next day. But the day we're recording this, I didn't have to work. So this lined up perfectly with both of our schedules.
Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking this could be like a good thing we could do, maybe once a month or something. But either way, I definitely would say thank you for having me on for this for sure. This was definitely a lot of fun for sure. And I'm definitely glad we got to do this.
Yeah, it's no problem. Alright, so I think that's going to do it for this first episode of this podcast, and we will see you all next time.